Ethiopia and Somalia boast a deep historical and cultural connection that spans generations, with ties woven through shared ethnicity, culture, and economic interdependence. This unique bond has fostered a sense of mutual responsibility, particularly in times of crisis. As Somalia descended into conflict and instability, Ethiopia frequently extended its hand to help, recognizing that peace in Somalia is crucial for its own security and well-being. Throughout significant upheavals, Ethiopia has played a vital role in maintaining peace and security in Somalia. From providing refuge to countless Somali refugees fleeing violence and famine, to direct mediation during heightened threats, Ethiopia has demonstrated unwavering commitment to the welfare of its neighbor. At the heart of this relationship lies the critical mission of Ethiopia's defense forces, who have served as guardians of peace during Somalia's most tumultuous moments. Their efforts, fueled by shared history and the imperative to maintain regional stability, have been pivotal in Somalia's fight against extremism and its journey toward reconstruction. They share a common border. They also share cultural and religious ties. Nomadic communities moved across the shared border.
Islam spread to the Horn of Africa long ago. It found a home in both Ethiopia and Somalia. This shared faith created strong bonds. They fled there during times of conflict and famine. Ethiopia welcomed them.
However, their relationship is not without its complexities. There have been periods of conflict and mistrust. Territorial disputes have flared up. Despite these challenges, the shared history and cultural ties between Ethiopia and Somalia remain strong.
The disintegration of Somalia's central government in 1991, following the ousting of President Siad Barre, marked the beginning of an era characterized by chaos and turmoil. As various clans and warlords battled for dominance, Somalia plunged into a nationwide conflict, leading to devastating consequences for its people. The resulting power vacuum not only ravaged Somalia but also threatened the broader region, including Ethiopia. The conflict triggered a humanitarian crisis, forcing millions of Somalis to flee their homes in search of safety in neighboring countries. The turmoil allowed extremist groups to gain ground, exacerbating the situation. For Ethiopia, the instability in Somalia posed an immediate danger, as the violence and political disorder spilled across its borders, bringing security risks and waves of displaced populations. The shared ties between Ethiopia and Somalia, despite the political upheaval. Ethiopia and Somalia share strong cultural and ethnic ties. Many communities in both nations are linked through a common heritage, particularly the Somali communities residing in Ethiopia's eastern regions. These historical connections fostered a sense of collective responsibility, compelling Ethiopia to feel a moral and humanitarian obligation to support Somalia during its crisis.
Ethiopia's decision to shelter millions of Somali refugees fleeing war and famine further strengthened these bonds. The country opened its borders, offering safety and refuge during one of Somalia's darkest chapters. This act of solidarity reinforced the enduring ties between the two peoples, with Ethiopia treating these refugees as if they were its citizens. See Ethiopia's motivation for engagement. Ethiopia's involvement in Somalia was driven not only by humanitarian concerns, but also by the recognition that Somalia's instability posed a direct threat to its security. The collapse of governance in Somalia created a breeding ground for extremism, with groups like Al-Shabaab emerging to exploit the chaos. Sharing a long and porous border with Somalia, Ethiopia understood that unchecked instability could lead to cross-border violence, radicalism, and wider regional turbulence. Consequently, Ethiopia took proactive measures to protect its borders and contribute to regional stability. By intervening in Somalia, Ethiopia aimed to address these threats before they could escalate, securing not only the safety of its citizens, but also aiding Somalia in its pursuit of peace and governance. The rise of radicalism in Somalia. Emergence of the Islamic Courts Union, ICU. In the early 2000s, Somalia witnessed the rise of the Islamic Courts Union, ICU, an alliance of Sharia courts seeking to impose strict Islamic law across the country. Initially gaining support for bringing a sense of order to war-torn regions, the ICU soon expanded its influence, taking control of much of southern Somalia, including the capital, Mogadishu. Ethiopia grew increasingly concerned about the ICU's escalating power. particularly due to the presence of extremist factions within the group. Some ICU leaders held radical views, leading to fears that Somalia could become a sanctuary for terrorist activities. With its diverse population and a long history of counter-terrorism efforts, Ethiopia viewed the ICU's expansion as a potential threat to regional stability and national security.
B. The rise of al-Shabaab. The ICU's influence began to wane when radical elements within the movement splintered off to form al-Shabaab, an extremist group with a more aggressive agenda. Al-Shabaab rapidly gained notoriety for its violent tactics and its goal of establishing an Islamic state in Somalia based on strict Sharia law. The group also aligned itself with global jihadist movements, including al-Qaeda, intensifying the security threat in the region. Al-Shabaab's emergence posed significant challenges for Somalia's fragile government and regional security as a whole. The group launched attacks inside Somalia and across borders, targeting civilians, government institutions, and foreign peacekeepers. Al-Shabaab's insurgency further deepened Somalia's instability, complicating efforts to rebuild a functional state. For Ethiopia, the rise of Al-Shabaab underscored the urgent need for military intervention. As Al-Shabaab's influence spread, threatening not just Somalia but also Ethiopia, the latter joined regional and international efforts to combat the group and diminish its control over Somali territory, although the group remains a persistent danger today. Ethiopia's intervention significantly weakened the ICU and disrupted its attempt to impose strict Islamic law across Somalia. Ethiopian troops played a crucial role in securing vital areas, including Mogadishu, thus preventing Somalia from falling entirely under radical control. While the intervention restored a degree of order, extremist factions continued to survive and regroup, with al-Shabaab emerging as the ICU's more radical offshoot. B. Ongoing fight against al-Shabaab. Since 2011, Ethiopia has been integral to the ongoing battle against al-Shabaab as part of the African Union mission in Somalia, AMISOM. Ethiopia officially joined AMISOM to assist in peacekeeping and counter-terrorism efforts aimed at stabilizing Somalia and curbing the spread of extremism. Ethiopian soldiers, along with forces from AMISOM, have participated in numerous operations to degrade al-Shabaab's capabilities and reclaim territory from the militant group. Ethiopia's leadership within AMISOM has been critical in pushing al-Shabaab out of key urban centers and securing regions essential to Somalia's rehabilitation. While al-Shabaab remains a formidable threat, Ethiopia's continued military presence and commitment to combating the group have ensured greater safety for Somalia's population and contributed to broader efforts to rebuild the country's infrastructure. Despite these successes, the fight against al-Shabaab continues, with Ethiopia remaining a vital player in ensuring peace and security in Somalia and the wider Horn of Africa. Ethiopia's decision to intervene in Somalia was driven by several factors. First, Ethiopia has a long history of supporting its neighbors. Ethiopia has a tradition of providing refuge to those fleeing conflict and persecution. It has a history of mediating disputes in the region. Helping Somalia was seen as part of its regional responsibility.
Second, Ethiopia had a direct interest in stabilizing Somalia. A chaotic Somalia posed a threat to Ethiopia's own security. The collapse of Somalia's government created a power vacuum. This allowed extremist groups to flourish. These groups threatened to destabilize the entire Horn of Africa region.
Third, Ethiopia felt a moral obligation to help the Somali people. The humanitarian crisis in Somalia was dire. Millions of people were displaced. Many were facing starvation. Ethiopia could not stand by and watch as its neighbor descended into chaos and suffering. Section 5. Ethiopia's warriors confronting terror in Somalia. In 2006, Ethiopia launched a military intervention in Somalia. They aimed to oust the Islamic Courts Union, which had seized control of much of south and central Somalia.
The ICU's growing power and the rise of the extremist group al-Shabaab within its ranks alarmed Ethiopia and the international community.
Ethiopian forces, with the backing of the United States, swiftly defeated the ICU. They drove them out of Mogadishu, the Somali capital. This intervention marked a turning point in the Somali conflict. It shattered the ICU's grip on power.
However, it also led to a protracted insurgency. Al-Shabaab, weakened but not defeated, retreated to the countryside. They regrouped and launched a guerrilla war against the Ethiopian forces and the nascent Somali government.
Ethiopian troops remained in Somalia for several years. They engaged in a difficult and dangerous fight against al-Shabaab militants. Section 6. Beyond the battlefield, Ethiopia's embrace of Somali refugees. Humanitarian assistance and shelter for Somali citizens. Ethiopia's refuge for Somali citizens. During times of war, famine, and political instability in Somalia, Ethiopia has served as a crucial sanctuary for thousands of displaced Somalis. The collapse of the Somali government in 1991 and the ongoing struggles with extremist groups such as al-Shabaab forced many Somalis to flee their homeland in search of safety.
Acknowledging its shared social and historical ties with Somalia, Ethiopia opened its borders to those in need, providing refuge for countless Somali nationals.
Ethiopia's humanitarian efforts extended beyond mere shelter as the country also offered essential services such as food, healthcare, and infrastructure to Somali refugees. Many of them sought long-term residence in Ethiopia's refugee camps. These camps became bastions of survival that displaced Somalis could endure while awaiting the possibility of returning home.
Ethiopia's generosity in providing refuge reflected its deep commitment to regional stability and humanitarian compassion, treating Somali refugees with dignity and care.
Section 7. A fragile peace. Somalia's ongoing struggle for stability. Current security challenges in Somalia. Despite ongoing efforts to restore peace and stability, Somalia continues to face significant security challenges. The militant group al-Shabaab remains a persistent threat, controlling parts of southern Somalia and regularly launching attacks against government forces, civilians, and international peacekeeping missions. They target civilians, government officials, and security forces. The group exploits the country's weak governance and poverty to recruit fighters.
The Somali government, with the support of the international community, is working to rebuild the country. However, progress is slow. Corruption, clan rivalries, and a lack of basic services continue to hinder Somalia's recovery. The security situation remains volatile. Al-Shabaab's ability to carry out attacks demonstrates the ongoing challenges to stability.
Section 8. A delicate balance navigating political tensions. Ethiopia's involvement in Somalia, while driven by a desire for regional stability, has also been met with political complexities. Somalia, struggling to rebuild its own national identity and sovereignty, has at times viewed Ethiopia's presence with a wary eye.
The historical baggage of territorial disputes and political differences occasionally resurfaces, leading to friction between the two governments. Suspicions arise over Ethiopia's motives, particularly when its actions are perceived as exceeding the mandate of security cooperation. This delicate balance requires careful diplomacy and a constant need to build trust.
Open dialogue and transparency regarding Ethiopia's intentions are crucial to alleviate concerns and foster a more cooperative relationship.
Section 9. Ethiopia's pledge, a steadfast partner for a brighter future. Ethiopia remains committed to supporting Somalia's journey towards peace and stability. Recognizing that a secure and prosperous Somalia is in its own best interests, Ethiopia continues to provide military support, humanitarian aid, and diplomatic engagement.
Ethiopia's commitment extends beyond immediate security concerns. The country advocates for increased international assistance to Somalia, recognizing that a multifaceted approach is essential for lasting peace. Ethiopia also supports Somali-led peace-building initiatives and encourages dialogue between different factions within the country.
Section 10. Guardians of Hope. Ethiopia's enduring role in Somalia's destiny. As Somalia takes tentative steps towards a brighter future, Ethiopia's role remains pivotal. The country stands as a guardian of hope, a beacon of stability in a region often plagued by conflict and hardship. Their enduring commitment to Somalia's well-being is a testament to the deep bonds forged through shared history, culture, and a common desire for peace.
Ethiopia's ongoing support, both militarily and through humanitarian aid, provides a crucial lifeline to the Somali people. Their willingness to stand by Somalia in its darkest hour offers a glimmer of optimism in a region often shrouded in despair.
Empowering Somali institutions, fostering good governance, and promoting inclusive dialogue are crucial steps towards a sustainable peace. Ethiopia, with its experience and understanding of the region, can play a vital role in facilitating this transition.